My name is Christina, and this is my story. So I grew up in a small town in Nevada, Mesquite, Nevada, near Las Vegas. And I grew up in a very dysfunctional and abusive home. My mom had 4 kids by 3 different men by the age of 22. And I never knew my dad growing up. And so really my mom was so young when she had us that she was really just kind of growing up alongside us. But thankfully, we had some neighbors who would pick us up on Sunday morning and take us to church. Church quickly became a safe haven, something there where I felt safe, I felt loved, and I really just enjoyed being at church as a kid. And when I was 8 years old, during vacation Bible school at church, they asked us to raise our hand if we wanted to go to heaven. Well, of course I raised my hand. I wanted to go to heaven. And I was baptized and continued attending church. When I was 13, my sisters and I were split up and I was put into a foster care situation. That home ended up not being a very safe place for me. And so I was sent to a group home in Las Vegas for a couple of months. After spending some time there, I was sent back to live with my mom. And it was not a good situation. And so at 15 years old, I asked my mom if I could move out on my own. I found a job at McDonald's. There was a girl there that needed a roommate, and so she allowed me to live there with her, and I was still able to go to church and attend school until my senior year, where I had to drop out, but was able to get my GED later on. So I turned 18 years old, and I really felt the need to leave the small town that I had grown up in. There was just so much struggle there. And so I moved to Reno, Nevada with my older sister. And shortly after moving to Reno, I found a church and also met Brother Ryan and Stacy within a few short weeks of moving to Reno. I was actively involved in the church and also actively involved in the collegiate ministry that Ryan and Stacy were working with. I also met my husband Jeremiah during that time. And in 2008, we were married, and then in 2010, we moved to Savoy, Texas, where he started his first full-time position as a youth minister and worship minister. So during our first year at FBC, the pastor was preaching verse by verse through the book of James. He often said at the end of each sermon, examine your life. Do you see the fruit of the Spirit in your life? Is your relationship with God a priority? Do you desire to follow God's commands? Do you trust God fully? So I quickly began to realize that while I loved God and I loved serving in the church, that I was often going my own way with no thought of God. It was through this study of James over several months that I began to see my need for Jesus, not just as Savior, but Lord of my life. But I also worried about what others might think if the youth pastor's wife suddenly came forward confessing her need for Jesus. But after a church service, I went home and I talked to Jeremiah, and I prayed with him, and I asked Jesus to really become the Lord of my life. I can't explain to you the peace that came over me as a result of that. The following week, I was baptized by Jeremiah. When I look back at the last 10 years, I'm so thankful for the hope that I have found through my relationship with Jesus. Through that relationship, it has improved my marriage, it's improved relationships with my family members, and it's really helped me to find peace and heal from a broken past. Life's not always easy, but it's incredible when Christ is at the center of it. Regardless of trials and struggles that come my way, at the end of the day, I have Jesus. I have peace, and I have hope.